Adam Taxin with Rabbi Nochum Kurinsky of Chabad The Beaches. That's ChabadTheBeaches.com. We're continuing our discussion of your response to Tiger Mom. Not that she necessarily cares too much what Rabbi Ponte Vedra Beach has to say, but we've had some interesting points so far, and we want to get to the third topic. Hopefully, we won't have any more technical difficulties. Low budget, but I guess it would be disingenuous to say that there's not something to being Jewish in academic success, and specifically we're talking about the Jewish approach to education. And I know you have a lot to say there, so let me turn it over to you.
Yeah, so look, there's as with most or all of Jewish or what should be Jewish philosophy or our Jewish approach to things, based on the Torah, based on the values of the Bible, the values of the Talmud, and our age-old traditions. And we find in last week's Torah portion, Bo, we find there's a mitzvah to...
Which is an interesting topic, because we just did a video on dogs. Bo is the one where dogs are mentioned favorably. I just have to add that.
Obama's dog's name, right?
Yeah,
so we have, there's a mitzvah of the mitzvah of teaching, of educating your child, of a specific commandment and an opportunity to connect to God when we educate our children. We also have the Passover, the holiday of our Exodus, of our freedom, which we're reading about now in the weekly cycle of the Torah portion, the cycle of reading the Torah according to the as it's divided according to one section for each week. Mm-hmm. We go through the yearly cycle. We also deal with the Exodus of Egypt, and of course the famous holiday that's associated with the Exodus of Egypt is Passover, and we have the four questions. The primary part of the Haggadah is the children asking questions. So we always have, Judaism tells us how important it is for us to emphasize education and to spend time really thinking about the future and our nurturing and developing our children. And most importantly, King Solomon tells us Chanoch l'nar al pi darko, that the way of the Torah is to take a child and to educate them according to their way. Mm-hmm. So you may have a child that requires more discipline, and you may have a child that needs more love, another child is more studious by nature. It's important for us to spend time developing the needs of that particular child.
It's interesting you mention that, because you often have a stereotype of the old cheder back in the old country, where there'd be an old rabbi with a ruler, disciplining the kid, and they'd be there for 12 hours a day, and it certainly was not attuned to the needs of each child.
Right. The previous Rebbe put a lot of the previous Chabad Rebbe spent a great deal of time, effort, money building a trade school at Kfar Chabad in Israel, still doing it till today. So the idea that every child has to be educated in their own unique way. And as a matter of fact, I would argue that the cheder system is more in line with this thinking, because you'd have a teacher and you'd have a group of children.
I meant in the past.
In the past, but even so, he would have a group of children. It would be one teacher, and he would spend time. He'd focus on one child and teach him the way he needed it, and go to the next child, and the way he or she needed it, next child, and as that child was busy preparing for the next lesson, go to the next child, to develop each child according to his way. So that's actually depending on how the cheder was run, but that would be an ideal. That would be the ideal educational system.
Cheder is the old schools for children back that they would have in Eastern Europe, and I was also talking a little bit more about a stereotype as opposed to reality.
Right. And then you also have the basic. I once heard a rabbi say it very well. He said by a Shabbat meal, he'd have guests there, some for the first time, some of their regular basis, and he would go around the table and say, So what are you? What are you? And each person would go, what are you? Mm-hmm. And one person would say, I'm a carpenter, I'm a lawyer, I'm an accountant. Oh, very nice. So they go around the table, and then he would say, inevitably he would say, I didn't ask you what do you do, I asked you what are you? Sure. And they would say, the people would say, oh, what am I? You'd be stumped. And the answer is, hopefully, we educate our children properly. Then when someone asks you, what are you? I'm a Jew. Mm-hmm. I'm a Jew. I develop a mensch. I'm somebody who's God-fearing. I'm somebody who's passionate about my contribution to society. I believe I have the opportunity, every moment that I live, I can bring godliness to the world. I can make this world a holy place. So we need to nurture a child, to have a child really believe that, and really breathe that, and live that every moment of the day. It requires nurturing, it requires education, and also requires knowing the particular needs of that child. Mm-hmm. And of course, the last thing about education, which is can't be overlooked, is It's 50% of Judaism is Torah study.
Mm-hmm.
It's equal, or in some cases considered more valuable, less valuable than what we do. Is study of Torah. Studying Torah for the sake of, not necessarily for knowledge achieved or to know how to behave as a Jew, what rules to follow, but simply to study, just to know that relationship that we have with God when we study Torah is an incredible oneness. It's an incredible growth, and not for the sake of attaining knowledge, just for the sake of oneness, of bringing godliness into the world. So there's such an emphasis on Torah study and on study in general that naturally it carries over into us as a society, and we have this need, whether we consider ourselves observant or not, religious or not, conservative, reform, orthodox, all the different labels that we like that really belong on cans, and we put them on people.
Sure.
But we really should spend we really have culturally we have this habit of spending so much time studying because it's such a part of the Torah and what the Torah wants from us.
Gotcha. So, in sum, I hope I'm not mischaracterizing. I didn't read her book, what Amy Chua says, but it would be a lot less effort if it were simply in our blood that we were smart and educated and accomplished because we had Jewish blood in us. But
right.
It sounds like it's a lot more effort than that.
It's absolutely a lot more effort, and if it was that easy, I'd have a much easier time with my 5 children that I would work very hard to educate and screw up often and sometimes successful, and that's part of this concept where we actually spend time. And Amy Cho might be right about her kids, I don't know, but a parent has to really spend time in getting to know their child and understanding the needs of that particular child and how to develop that child's needs, and then work from there, and ultimately paying attention to not just the child's mind, but the child's body, but more importantly the child's soul. The child has a soul. A child is born holy and pure and godly, and we need to nurture that. We need to develop that in the child, and it takes a lot of effort to do that. And every child's different. There's no one catch-all or one fix-it, one silver bullet that fixes all of our problems with education.
Great. Thank you, Rabbi Kurinsky.